Was there ever a plan to give out free crisps?
I don't think they've ever given out or thought about giving out free crisps. Although I quite like crisps.
I love crisps.
I don't think many people would argue that you can't have a decent life without free crisps.
I think I'd kill myself if I couldn't have crisps.
It was an apparently irresistible spread, like Nutella. The Quran says, accumulating knowledge is a worthy act. So Islamic mega-nerds created the first universities and libraries, conferring all the world's knowledge, which at that point could probably fit into one pamphlet, to be fair.
The ancient Egyptians thought that onions were medicine, but they're not.
They literally didn't know they were onions, and that's where we get the phrase from. Of course, today we now know that onions are not a medicine. Onions are disgusting. Tudor feasts were huge and often included roast goose or swan or peacock, basically a big bird roasted whole. That might sound traumatic, but in the days before television, they didn't know big birds have a person inside.
To find out more about Tudor eating habits, I spoke to food expert Jay Rayner.
So what sort of things did Tudor people eat at Christmas? They ate things like peacock, didn't they? What goes with peacock? What kind of gravy?
There is evidence that they ate, very exotic things, but only that would have been the very, very richest people.
I suppose the best thing about them as well is that tail, and that's not going to taste of anything, is it?
No, that's purely for display. Yeah.
A Tudor Christmas, then, they'd have peacock, like you say.
No, I think like you said.
The royals had peacock.
I don't know how much peacock was eaten in Tudor days, I'll be honest.
How did that affect their bowels, what comes out of their back holes?
I don't know. I suppose if they were eating too much, it would have caused certain bowel issues.
I suppose meat, lots of meats.
Lots of meat
compacted together.
Can compact, yes.
And make sort of big hard stools.
It would have been uncomfortable, I imagine, but I'm only guessing.
Let's see, that would have been the first bit that I'd gone to if I was a food expert.
The early farmers grew wheat and learned to bake bread. They also grew barley, peas and lentils, so they could have made a passable vegan burger to put inside the bread. But luckily, they didn't have to.
Because they'd also invented this, the fence, a high-tech wooden machine for containing animals.
Humans quickly enslaved sheep, chickens, goats, and their number one enemies, the cows. Farms became a lot like zoos, except, of course, in a zoo, you can't pick out an animal you like the look of and kill it and eat it, unless perhaps the zoo itself is struggling financially and the owner's lost all hope.
The world's getting hotter, isn't it? But how can we stop ourselves from turning into steam? What do we do? Should we just start eating more salad and stuff like that?
It's certainly true. We will have to adapt to a warmer climate. And we will probably have to eat different things.
Because ice cream and stuff?
Well, certainly as the world gets warmer,
Probably going to be an ice ban, though, isn't it? So we can't have ice lollies.
I don't think so. It's not that bad.
Next time on Moments of Wonder, I'll be asking, why do we cry when it's the onions that are getting hurt?
If we give starving people a load of money, how do we know they're not just going to go out and blow it all on food?
If you're dealing with something like famine, you're always dealing through an intermediary who will be making sure the right food reaches the right people.
Do you have to be careful about people that might have, peanut allergies? Because some people haven't tried nuts before, have they?
That's a very interesting issue, whether or not peanut allergies are a sort of first world problem. Don't know, what an interesting thought.
Thank you.
It was a disagreement over money, basically.
It's like the situation between me and my ex, Sean. When we used to get takeaway, or takeout, as you call it, sometimes, he would always insist that we go halves. And yet he would want to buy things like onion bhajis, which he knows I hate, and they made his breath stink. So, but I had to pay for half of that. That doesn't seem fair to me. Does it to you?
Put that way, no.
No, and that's from a professor, Sean.
How did Sir Walter Raleigh invent the potato?
Well, he didn't invent the potato in that I don't think anyone actually has ever invented a root vegetable, because they're obviously being cultivated and used by people living in the Americas when he arrived there.
When Sir Walter Raleigh first saw potatoes, was he scared of them?
I think that when Sir Walter Raleigh first saw potatoes, not that we've any documented records on the moment when he first beheld a potato or a field of potatoes, but I don't think he was scared of them. This is a buccaneering character, and I think that he probably was able to take on and manage his emotions whilst engaging with potatoes at first sight.
We still celebrate potatoes to this day by buying and eating them. It's amazing to think that Queen Elizabeth was the first British monarch to be impressed by a baked potato, and the last.
What was the Soviet onion?
Well, I think you're labouring under a misapprehension, and you probably mean the Soviet Union.
No, it's onion. I saw it on a bit of paper earlier.
Well, that's probably been misspelt, or you can't read very well. But I think that you mean, in historical terms, the Soviet Union or the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
I don't want to be rude, but I think you're mansplaining a bit. Can we stick to the topic of the Soviet onion, please?
OK.
What exactly was it? If you don't know, it's OK to say. You know, I won't judge you.
Well, if you want to talk about sort of Russian Soviet vegetables, we can. I mean, it was a deeply agrarian country. And so there were lots of onions, lots of potatoes, lots of other things.
Did they have turnips?
I think so. Cheap, easy to grow, hardy, great in a stew.
So how come you know so much about vegetables? Have you got an allotment?
Why can't we get medicine crisps? You know, because no one likes needles and everyone likes crisps.
Well, there's a thing called the risk-benefit ratio. So whenever we do anything to a patient, we have to weigh up the harm we're doing as opposed to the good we're doing. And there's always a downside. And if we had medicine crisps, I think the amount of carbohydrate and fats and salt we'd be taking in with the crisps would outweigh the good that's done by the medicine. So I think that's a very good idea, actually.
Right. And like, if you had like Monster Munch, that wouldn't work as well as medicines.
Sorry, Monster Munch. Could you explain that to me?
It's like a puffy crisp. They're lovely. You can get like pickled onion and beef.
Right. Again, I'd have to weigh up the risk-benefit ratio of, what did you call the monster?
Monster Munch.
Monster Munch mixed with the medicine, the bad it would do versus the good.
Right.
Hello, I'm Philomena Cunk, and this is my new range of pasta sauces. I've got wheat-free pesto, reggae enchilada, and jerk tuna, along with 35 other delicious flavours.
Oh yeah, I've got a book out as well. Cunk on everything. Out November the 1st. Buy the pasta sauces though, because I'm really proud of those. What was Renaissance? Was that a sort of 16th century ketchup?
Renaissance comes from the French. It's Renaissance, naissance is birth. So it was seen as a rebirth.
So it's not a condiment at all?
No, not as far as I know.
Okay. What sauces did they use back then?
So this is an area of culinary history I'm not very familiar with, the history of sauces.
Oh, so you're not the sauce person?
I'm not predominantly a sauce person.
We're going to have to rethink this whole interview. Why do I have to actually come and film this? Couldn't a computer just show it on the telly in the simulation? Or is that where I am? You know, do I exist at all? Why is this happening? Why isn't it just me eating a chocolate eclair in a loop, like in a GIF? I'd swap for that.
Could you talk me through what makes a perfect Christmas dinner?
Once you've got the right people around the table, you need a light starter. If you give people too much to, which is
Not
really
prawn cocktails.
well, I don't know. If a good prawn cocktail's a lovely thing.
I don't like prawns.
Do you know?
No, they're bottom feeders.
Okay, I tend to do platters of charcuterie, salami and ham, and maybe some pickles and things for people to pick
that.
up.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have that? No? Okay. And then you come to the main event. So maybe a 3-bird roast or a roast goose, bread sauce gravy.
I don't understand bread sauce.
It's a great way of making a really savoury sauce.
Bread and sauce are two completely different things, aren't they?
Well, they are, but you can grind the bread down and then cook it in milk to make a really good sauce.
It just looks like sort of... Cheers.